and I want you to hear it. I love this song and this version of this song. Great song. Yes, I think it's a great song for a number of things. First, it's a remix, if you hadn't figured it. It was a song that was made famous by Rihanna. But this is not Rihanna singing this song. I couldn't tell you the name of the vocalist you just heard. The violinist is a girl by the name of Lindsay Sterling. And that was filmed on location in Kenya, Africa. It's a song that has such vibrancy, such a sense of life. The melody and the lyrics and the English and the African language all intermingling together to give such a lift that you don't even need to hear the words to know it brings a sense of life. The song is about finding love in a hopeless place. The young singer, although I don't know her name, I know she was a girl found in the streets of Kenya and groomed by Lindsay to sing the song. Beautiful voice. And it's a song about promise and about hope. What does that have to do with the scriptures you just heard? Well, I want to go back a few weeks. And I want to talk about the feelings that people have. And the reason I go back a few weeks is I stormed out here one afternoon, or one morning, I guess it would be, in late October, early November. And I went on a rant in this congregation about my anger about the way we are living in our world. And I did so because I was concerned at the time. I still am concerned, deeply concerned about the condition of life on this planet and the way people treat one another. But I was also acting out of something that I've just come to understand is that we're all programmed to do, which is to act out of our fear. We act out in fear. We act out in scarcity. And mid-January is a good time to talk about it because people are getting their bills after the Christmas season. Weather's nasty. People's health is questionable with colds and flu going around. People are feeling down. And as I said when I came in this morning, everybody feels down. And it's easy for us to react out of lack and fear. We have been programmed since evolution, or creation, however you want to call it, to react in fear and to our lack, to our scarcity. Population bases move to get food because there isn't enough. People are always worried about what's coming next, what's going to happen next. And we compartmentalize the world around that, and we do what we can do to struggle to survive. And there are times for many people, the conditions of their life seem pretty hopeless, and they don't know what they're looking for. Those scriptures you heard today address that. The wedding feast at Cana addresses it directly. And it's an interesting story. I don't talk much about miracles, and I certainly don't want to get into the mechanics of a miracle, whether it's physical or emotional or spiritual, or whether you see it or don't see it. I don't want to get into that. To me, it's the same as if somebody came down the street right now in a flying car and got out and levitated into the building. Trying to explain it to people later on, they say, oh, that's not true. And so you want to explain the mechanics of it to them, and they don't get it. Instead of just going, wow, wasn't that amazing? And understanding the awe of it. So here's the awe. All the Gospels, all the accounts of the writers that were sort of traveling around with Jesus, write down that he did stuff. Now, as you know, first impressions are really important, right? You first meet somebody, First impressions count. Well, there's a first impression in all the Gospels based on the way Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote about Jesus. The others, this is John here today, the others all start out with Jesus doing something like healing, casting out demons or healing the sick, or a phenomenal sermon from Luke on hope and peace and people. But John, he's making wine. Right? Like, what a great first impression. Do you want to come to the party? I'll give you more wine. But you got to understand what's going on. Wine is a symbol of abundance and of the harvest. For a household to have a wedding and run out of wine is to acknowledge that they don't have enough, that they're out of, that they don't have enough to share with their friends and neighbors, that it's about their poverty. You would never run out of wine. And, the wine stores all know that. You don't want to run out of wine. But see, here's the miracle. Jesus, now you got to understand, this is a wedding, and now we have a history in our society of having weddings that can be small, but traditionally when a wedding's big enough to report into something that gets handed down through centuries, it's a big wedding, right? Huge wedding. We're talking those weddings with 200 to 300 to 400 people, and you need, beaucoup de wine to keep it all flowing. We're talking a Canaan wedding. I'm sorry, population base there was not large. This wedding, if it had 50 people, it was a big one. So we're not talking a lot of wine needed here, especially when you consider they ran out of wine 3/4 of the way through the party. They're already drunk. And every theologian on the planet will tell you that. And so they didn't need much more than a couple of bottles. And it didn't have to even be good stuff. Well, we all know the story that Jesus made water into wine, right? He makes water into wine, and he's reported that it's like the best they had. What they don't tell you, unless you know the math, and you can read it in the scriptures, is how much wine he made. Does anybody know how much wine he made? You hear it's six jars, right? You hear that, right? They're 30 gallons each. Now there's 750 milliliters of wine in a bottle. When you do the math and extrapolate it out, that's over 1,000 bottles of wine he makes. And that is the message. The message is the abundance. The abundance. Because you see, wine equates to a good harvest. Right? Lots of grapes, make lots of wine, household is blessed. That was the thinking. More wine, more blessing. What he's doing here is showing, is his first miracle, how abundantly blessed we are by God. But you have to be able to see it and understand it. So, when we react in scarcity, when we react in fear, even when the minister comes out in a rant about the way, the human race is going to hell in a handbasket because we're not living God's love out in this world, I'm reacting out of my own fear and scarcity. And at the same time as I'm doing that, I'm not giving room for God's grace to work in this world. God blesses us abundantly. But you have to be able to see it. Every one of us. There isn't a person in this room that doesn't wake up every day without our fears. We live with them. It's not just the economy. It's what's going to happen to so-and-so that I love. It's going to be what's going to happen at work. It's what's going to... We're programmed to deal with them first. As a matter of fact, if you understand the human psychology, we have the layers of the brain, starting with the hypothalamus, the inner animal brain, right? It's where the base emotions work. I learned this a long time ago when I needed to get help after dealing with my own fears and anxiety attacks in life. That when you wake up in the morning, the first one active is that one. And the upper levels don't come in until after you start to raise your consciousness in the day. We begin each day reacting to our fears and our concerns and our nightmares. And then we come to the structure of what we have to deal with and what we can bring to bear. And what this story teaches us is that the promise of God is that we will always have enough grace to address the fear. So, we found love in a hopeless place. It's a good song to remind us that God's love finds us always in that hopeless place. I like that particular version because it does this thing where it takes a North American song, takes it across the world onto the plains of Africa, into Kenya. And if you see the video, and maybe if you want to stay afterwards I can show it to you, that's filmed right on the plains, right in the schoolrooms in the villages of the African villages. And yes, the sound is dubbed in to make it work in our audio systems. But they're sitting in these African villages with these African people. The choruses you hear in that song, they're not trained choruses. They're the children and people of these African villages singing. So you got this funky American violinist going over there teaching them a song that's on the radio charts here, and they're with joy singing it in a place that you would consider abjectly poor. But they're not. They're not poor. They have an abundance of life, and they know it. It's we who wake up in our fears who don't know that we are living in an abundance of life. And every day is a new opportunity to live it. I was dead serious when I said this morning, it's a great thing to be thankful for that the sun came up this morning. It's a great thing to be able to say you can experience it and feel it and understand it. That you can look into the face of a stranger and see the nuances of what their life is like if you read their face. We have an abundance of God's love given to us, and we don't see it because we're worried about our fear. But we need to start doing an inventory of the things that we do have. What do we have that we can share in this world? Look around this congregation and say, what is that we have an abundance of that we can share in this world to show God's love? Is it just the ability to smile? It is. Is it the ability to walk in and insult two members of the congregation immediately by telling them that they're crazy and have them acknowledge the same of me? Yes. Humor, laughter, life. We have it to share. And that is what we take outside that door and transform this world with. We don't hold on to it. God doesn't give us to hold on to it. The wine has to flow in order to be doing any good. Wine stuck in the bottles doesn't work. If you want to talk about turning water into wine, you transform that into another parable, the parable of a community of people that will transform their pain and fear into love and hope. And convert that into, and we're the vessels that go out, that have to be opened and take it out into the world and pour it out for other people. And it isn't one or two or three or four. It becomes thousands, becomes millions. It's the transformation of this planet. It's about finding love in a hopeless place and then moving it forward. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.